What's up? Hello, everybody. I'm Brian Rohan. I'm the principal of the Rohan Law Group PC, and we are the trusted transactional titans. If you want experienced, trusted legal counsel, you want personable, responsive service, you want to establish a long-term, lasting relationship with counsel, this is where you got to be. You can find us right here. We're on 18 Computer Drive West, right off of Wolf Road in Colony. We also have satellite offices in Saratoga Springs and in Glens Falls. You can contact me by email, brohan, R-O-H-A-N, at rohanlaw.com. Telephone, 518-438-0010. Or, of course, you can reach us online, www.rohanlaw.com. Today, I want to talk to you about the real estate transaction. And in particular, we're going to do a deep dive into the inspections contingency provision, which is one of the major provisions of the contract. One of the things we like to do is educate our clients. We think it's important that you have a good understanding of the transaction. We think you appreciate that. So that's what we're here to do today. So we're going to drop some knowledge on you today, all right? And we're going to get going. We're going to get into it here. Now, the inspections contingency. Once you have your inspections, one of the things we'll talk about when we go over the attorney approval communication, we do go over the contract with you in detail at the time that we review the contract during that attorney approval provision. We personally believe the attorney approval provision is the most important part of the transaction, at least as far as our role is concerned. Whereas there are a ton of real estate firms in this area, law firms, that do not do attorney approval, or they go ahead and they send it over to the paralegals. We think they're doing you a great disservice. We are the ones that are going to talk to you. We're going to go over this contract in detail. When we talk to you about the inspections contingency, one of the things we want to know, do you plan on attending that inspection? And we get a lot of clients say, geez, Brian, I don't know. Boy, yeah, if I could. And I say, you know what? You can and you should. We absolutely want you to be there. You become our eyes and ears on the ground. Because unlike you, we don't see the property, we don't talk to your inspector. We just look at words on a page. Because once you have your inspections accomplished, you're going to send us over a copy of the reports. They're going to hit your email directly from your licensed home inspector, generally within a day or two after the inspections. When you get that email, we want you to forward it to our office, because we certainly expect that you're going to print out those reports and review them very carefully on your end. We're going to do the same thing on our end. When we're done with the review, we're going to kick out an email to you. Hey guys, I reviewed your inspection reports. Here's what I saw. And I tell my clients, we are the doom and gloom people. We are overly cautious and conservative in our review of those reports in your best interest. And we do that in no small part because, like I had already suggested, unlike yourself, we don't see the property, we don't talk to your inspector. So we're just looking at these reports. And these reports are getting longer and longer. They're 45 to 100 pages long anymore. And that's because the inspectors beef them up with 1 million photographs for your aesthetic viewing pleasure. But as lengthy as those reports are, you'll see that there's very surprisingly very little narrative or dialogue in there. They're mostly headings, subheadings, photographs, and little boxes that they check. Marginal, satisfactory, not applicable, and every once in a while they sprinkle a few words here and there. So it doesn't give us a heck of a lot to go on. That's why it's important that you're our eyes and ears on the ground, because we are going to look to you to let us know what concerns you truly have. And that's why you need to be there, right? You got to be at that inspection. For you to be afforded the opportunity to walk the property for a couple hours or more with this licensed professional who's having an open and frank dialogue with you every step along the way, pointing things out to you, answering your questions, invaluable for you. Also, when we review the report, we're gonna kick out a detailed email. Here's what we saw, okay? And when I do that, I am keeping in mind what your rights are under the contract. Because if you're not entitled to anything, I'm not gonna raise it, right? Any minor things that are just part of your offer, not gonna raise them. Okay, so in the inspection contingency, paragraph 20 of your contract, you will note that there's at subpart B as in boy of that provision, there's a very specific dollar amount that's incorporated in there. Now you'll see a couple boxes, right? The first one is the kind of the default, $2,000. And then there's a second box and a line blank in case you wanted to up the ante there. Maybe you talk to your inspector, there's multiple offers on a property, and you and your agent agreed, hey, you know what? Why don't we increase that threshold amount? 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, whatever the number might be, in order to make our offer a little bit more attractive, right? Because the seller knows, hey, listen, if they have a major item or a substantial defect, they have a means, the buyer then has a way out of the deal. You know, so the higher that number is to reach that threshold, the more comfortable the seller is, arguably, right? So you can enhance, maybe make your offer stand out, a little more attractive by raising that. But that's between you and your agent. When I get the contract, the numbers are already established. So for purposes of this discussion, let's just assume that the first box, the standard 2,000 is checked. Now, what that means is that you have absolutely no right whatsoever to raise any issue or concern that may be set forth in that report with the seller seeking any type of credit or concession or otherwise, unless you have at least one isolated, standalone defect that will cost $2,000 or more to correct, i.e. repair, replace, or remediate. Okay, and that $2,000 figure is not cumulative. So you can't say, for example, hey, Brian, I think I'm in great shape because I talked to the inspector and he said, no doubt about it, you have at least 4 issues that absolutely will cost over $500 each. 4 times 500, oh my God, Brian, $2,000, I did it. Say, nope, that is not how it works. You need one isolated standalone issue, $2,000, okay? And you'll note that under subpart B of paragraph 20, there are 3 very specific inspection line item contingencies that are applicable. The structural, which is the big one, right? The comprehensive inspection. The hazardous or waste or materials, substances, or the active pest infestation. So those 3 are subject to the $2,000. Gotta have a $2,000 issue or you got nothing, okay? Under subpart C, there are other inspections that are set forth. Radon, well water flow quality, septic system, underground storage tank. Those are all pass-fail. Doesn't matter how much it costs to correct any defect that may be found. If it fails, if radon levels come in at an elevated level, it failed. Septic system, they could just say, oh geez, the baffle needs to be replaced. It failed. Water quality comes back, it fails. Okay, now the seller, it's incumbent upon the seller to take some affirmative action or give you some type of credit to get that correction accomplished, or you can cancel, okay? But so just be clear, pass fail for those. The $2,000 threshold is subject to the items under subpart B. So when I review your report, I am looking for anything that I see based on my 35 plus years of experience that may arguably constitute a $2,000 plus repair item, okay? Regardless of what category the inspector may have pigeonholed it under. For example, a lot of times you might see where the inspector recommends a level 2 chimney inspection, and he may list that under maintenance. So you think, well, that's not a big deal. But if you have a wood burning fireplace in the home and the interior of the chimney, the ceramic insert or flue is cracked, deteriorated, requires replacement, I can guarantee you that it's going to cost between $4,500 and $5,000 or more to correct that. So absolutely a major item, right? So I'm looking for potential major items. Now just know that the inspector may point out things like, oh geez, there's no GFI outlet and that is a safety concern. They love to list safety concerns, and then you'll say, geez, Brian, of course they got to correct safety concerns, right? Nope. If it's a $2,000 safety concern, absolutely. Otherwise, I challenge you to review paragraph 20 very carefully and find me the word safety. It's not in there, okay? So just know you're not entitled to something like that. Inspectors also like to use the words at or near the end of its useful or serviceable life in their reports. When they talk about a roof, a furnace, a central air unit, a hot water heater. And that just means that's old, okay? As long as it's operational and it's doing its job, you're not entitled to a nickel. So it's important you understand that. The wording in the report is everything. Now, different if they say, well, we looked at the roof and the shingles are deteriorated, they're lifting, they're curling, and it's at the end of its useful or serviceable life. I recommend you go and get a professional roofer to further evaluate and put forward a written cost estimate. Now you got something, right? Because they made very detailed descriptions of the defects with that roof and the fact that it needs to be repaired or replaced. But if it's all they say is it's old, you're not entitled to anything whatsoever. Okay, so it is important you know that. Okay, now once I kick out my email to you with my observations, it's very important that you get back to me promptly. Okay, we're looking for answers. Don't forget, these transactions move like this, man. They got to move. So it's important that we get your responses timely. Anything that you say, hey, do you want to further evaluate one or more of the items that I'm raising here? And I'm going to ask you at the end of each item that I'm raising. And if you do, you've got a couple of options under subpart B. Okay, you can either cancel the deal if you have you got to have a major item. If you do, entirely up to you. Seller gets to weigh in. None. Okay, they have no input whatsoever. Completely at your discretion. You can either A, cancel the transaction. Hey Brian, based on this report, a lot of problems with this place, including one or more big ones, money pit. I'd rather move on, find something else, please cancel. Or B, defer, put off cancellation for a few days to see if the seller will play ball. If you choose option B, you work very closely with your real estate professional, your agent. You line up one or more qualified contractors, the identity of which is going to depend on the issue or concerns at hand, right? A roofer, mason, plumber, electrician, HVAC specialist, mold specialist, chimney specialist, whoever that guy or those guys are that are uniquely qualified to speak to your specific concerns. You line them up, they go over to the property, they take a closer peek. They further evaluate the specific issue or concern that you assign to them, and they put forward a written cost estimate for recommended repair. Now, armed with one or more written cost estimates, each one of which standing alone needs to meet or exceed the threshold amount, the $2,000, or you got nothing. Now we have real figures to sink our teeth into for purposes of trying to ascertain if some type of negotiation or compromise can be struck to save the deal and push it forward, whether that's an aggregate credit against the purchase price or otherwise. If we're successful in our efforts to reach a negotiation, you're happy with the disposition, the deal moves forward. If we're not, let's say the seller digs their heels in, absolutely refuses to cooperate, says, I'm not coming down anymore, I already came down as far as I could, I didn't get what I really wanted for the property, you can cancel. Okay, you can still cancel. So if you're going to work with your agent, again, efficiency, diligence is very important. You got to go get those written cost estimates as quickly as you can, because under the contract, we're only afforded a 10-day window for that to happen. And the further you drag it out, the more disenchanted the seller is going to be becoming with the process. And obviously that's always a concern. You don't want the seller bailing on you. Okay, so it is important to move it along. Okay, so that's how the inspections contingency is going to work. Okay, and obviously if you have any questions or concerns whatsoever, don't hesitate to give me a call, fire off an email. As I suggested, we are exceedingly responsive. Unlike most law firms in the capital region, we're all over it. We know it's important to move these along. We know you want answers. We know you want to get in that property without extended delay, and we're here to help you along the journey. And we work very closely with your agent. Your agent referred you to us for a reason. We're the very best at what we do in the capital region, and your agent is part of our team. They made a decision, hey, we value this client. We know that this is a tremendous cost expenditure, buying a property, whether it's a residential property or if it's some type of multifamily, an investment property, or a commercial property for that matter, which we handle it all, soup to nuts. They know that's a humongous personal investment on your part, right? So they want you to get the very best legal guidance and expertise. They want people that are going to be responsive all over it. Someone that you can trust, that you can count on. That's us. Okay. So if you have a transaction and you want it in the very best hands, you need to come to the trusted transactional titans here at the Rohan Law Group, PC.